Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I am Lutfi, and I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Agar for giving me the chance to moderate today's session. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you guys as we dive into the chapter fourth of this engineering ethic books, concept, and cases by Charles Harris. And today's discussion will focus on engineers in organizations. It is a crucial topic that explores the ethical responsibilities, roles, and challenges engineers face in professional environment. And our presenter for this week is my fellow classmate Muzaki. Before we begin, let me briefly the outline of this session. Muzaki will deliver his presentation, and after that, we will have a Q&A session where you can share your thought and ask questions and engage in meaningful discussions. I also encourage everyone to participate actively and respectfully. So without further ado, let's welcome Muzaki to present chapter 4, engineers in organization. To Muzaki, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Lutfi. So I will first share the screen. Can you see my screen on Canva? Can you see the
Yes.
presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, we can move.
Okay, then I will begin. Uh, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So good afternoon, everyone. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Muzaki Guswan Effendi, and today I will be talking about engineers in organization. So this presentation will cover its key concepts and also ethical considerations. And for the lecturer is Dr. Fajar Gembira. And for the reference that I use is this book, as you can see in the right figure. So let's dive right in. So I will be talking about main ideas in this chapter. First is about communication. So the communication and culture are vital in organizations. And then the second is engineers should utilize organizational resources to maintain integrity. So engineers are expected to follow the policies of the company that they are in and business objectives. But at the same time, they have a professional responsibility to ensure their work is safe, ethical, and beneficial to society. And then the third is ethical decision making can be hindered by long-standing practices. And then the fourth is ethics and compliance officers help ensure appropriate workplace conduct. And then the engineers and managers have different but legitimate perspectives. Later we will be talking about engineers and managers. And then the last is whistleblowing as a last resort for addressing the workplace issues. Now the ideas. Now first I will be talking about the first is engineers and organization. Most engineers work in corporate settings, not as self-employed professionals. And then, so this means unlike some professions where individuals can easily work independently, in engineers usually they work in teams. And then the second is engineers must align with company goals while upholding the ethical standards. And then for the example for these 2 points is Ray Anderson. So he is the founder and CEO of Interface Carpets, initially focused on profit and business growth, but shift towards sustainability after reading The Ecology of Commerce in the 1990s. And realizing his company's environmental impact, he launched Mission Zero, aiming to eliminate negative environmental effects by 2020. He invests in eco-friendly materials, waste reduction, and renewable energy, while encouraging engineers to develop sustainable carpet designs. So the Anderson transformation proved that ethical business practice can be profitable, highlighting the crucial role of engineers in driving innovation and corporate responsibility. So it highlights the important role engineers play in driving ethical innovation within the corporate settings. Now the second is engineers versus managers. So the engineers should focus on technical expertise and safety. So engineers are responsible for designing and implementing safe, efficient, and high-quality solutions. Their primary concern is ensuring that projects meet technical standards, safety regulation, and also ethical guidelines. And then the second is managers. Unlike engineers, the managers more like prioritize the financial issues, success, and organizational efficiency. So the managers focus on business objectives like profitability, cost control, deadlines, and market competition. Their job is to ensure that the organization runs smoothly, meets the targets and the standard, and stays financially sustainable. So between them, as you know, they're like not the same. So usually conflict arise due to the differences in education, values, and responsibilities. Besides value differences, engineers and managers come from different educational backgrounds. Engineers are trained in technical problem solving, while the managers are trained in business strategy. Next, we will be talking about dilemmas, ethical dilemmas in organizations. So the engineers often face loyalty conflicts between their profession and employer. Conflict arises when company priorities such as cost-cutting, deadlines, profits clash with engineering ethics like safety, sustainability, and quality. So, for example, an engineer may discover a design flaw but face pressure to ignore or downplay it to avoid project delays. And then the second point I want to highlight is ethical considerations may be overlooked in managerial decisions. So, some organization foster a culture of silence where employees fear retaliation for raising ethical concerns. So a company might use cheaper but unsafe materials to reduce costs despite the engineers that works in that company knowing the risk. And then the case study. So the case study for like this case is Challenge Disaster, engineer versus management decision making. So in 1986, NASA Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after launch, killing all seven astronauts due to the O-ring failure in freezing temperatures. And then Roger Boyce-Joly and other Morton Thiokol engineers warned of the risk, but the managers under the NASA's deadline pressure overruled their concern and approved the launch. Thus, this disaster highlights the catastrophic consequences of prioritizing business and political pressure over engineering ethics and safety. Then, the role of organizational culture. So, the first point for this topic is the culture is shaped by top-level management. So, organizational culture refers to the shared values, beliefs, and behaviors within the company. Leaders executive set the tone. If they prioritize the ethics and responsibility, then the employees are more likely to follow. So some of the example for this is like the culture, like toxic culture, like in Volkswagen emission scandal. If you know, Volkswagen is actually the brand of the car, the Europe brand. And the issue is Volkswagen installed software to cheat emission tests, falsely making their cars appear environmentally friendly. So the culture, the toxic culture is employees face intense pressure to meet the emission targets, leading to deceptive practice instead of ethical solutions. And then the second point is ethical organizational culture supports transparency and responsibility. In an ethical workplace, employees feel safe to report concerns and follow professional standards without fear of retaliation. So the companies must have clear ethical policies, compliance officers, and open communication to prevent unethical behavior before it appears. And then the last is engineers need to understand the corporate culture to navigate the ethical challenges. So engineers must recognize how company culture influence decision making and how to handle the ethical dilemmas within that culture. So understanding the formal, the policies and informal unwritten norms helps the engineers make responsible choices without risking their careers. Then the responsible DISM and whistleblowing. So the first point is engineers may need to challenge unethical practices. So engineers have a professional and ethical duty to prioritize public safety, health, and welfare over company interests. So some design for this point is first internal design. It's like raising concerns within the organizations, like in meeting, reports, or ethic officers. And then the external design is like whistleblowing is reporting unethical actions to the public, media, or the authorities if internal solutions fail. So the first thing we should try first is internal design, then external design. And then the second point is whistleblowing should be a last resort choice. So before going public, engineers should try all internal channels to fix the issue. Whistleblowing can have serious consequences like job loss, legal battles, damaged reputation, or even retaliation. And the last point is the guidelines for ethical whistleblowing. So based on the Richard D. George guideline, he states that whistleblowing is morally permissible if the harm is serious, the engineer report concerns to a superior, and all internal channels are exhausted, and it becomes morally obligatory, obligatory like a must, if the whistleblower has a strong evidence and reasonable chance of preventing the harm. And the last is the case studies. So I have two case studies. First is the case studies of Ernest Fitzgerald versus Nixon. So who is Ernest? So this Ernest is a United States Air Force engineer and also the cost analyst. And then what happened to him? So in 1968, he testified before Congress. So he exposing around 2.3 billion US dollar in hidden cost overruns on a military aircraft contracts. So the reaction of the company, so the company of course really anger the Nixon administration, retaliate, and he was fired in 1969. The Nixon even admit in a private conversation, yes, he is a son of he is out. So he acknowledging that the Fitzgerald was politically motivated. And the outcome, after legal battles, the Fitzgerald was restrained and his case led to the stronger whistleblower protection laws, including the Whistleblower Protection Act. So the lesson from these cases is whistleblowing can lead to positive policy changes, but also lead to career risks. Like he even lost his job and have a serious legal battles. And the second case studies is Roger Boyce Joly and the Challenger disaster. So who is he? So Roger Boyce Joly is an engineer at Morton Thiokol. So before the 1986 Challenger launch, Boyce Joly and his team warned the NASA and the company managers that the O-rings could fail in cold weather, but their concerns were overruled by the target. And then the tragic outcome, so thus the Challenger explodes 73 seconds after launch, killing the astronauts. So the aftermath, Boyce Joly testified before the Rogers Commission, exposing how management ignored safety warnings. He later became an advocate for engineering ethics and whistleblower protection, though he faced professional and personal hardships. So the lesson that we can have is ignoring engineering ethics can have catastrophic consequences, disaster, and then speaking up is critical even when facing resistance. So that's all for our presentation, for my presentation. Thank you all for listening. Uh, Giving back to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Muzaki, for the excellent and insightful presentation. Now we will open the floor for question and discussion. So each of you have asked question to Muzaki or comments regarding his presentation. So please raise your hand or type them in the chat, uh, and let's have a conversations. So Hanif, you would like to ask Muzaki, time is yours, more Hanif.
Okay, thank you, Muzaki. Thank you, moderator, for the opportunity. So first, thank you, Muzaki, for the insightful presentation. So I would like to ask, so in the case of Roger Boyce Jolie and the Challenger disaster, ethical concerns were raised but ignored due to management pressure, leading to catastrophic consequences. Similarly, if you were required to join the student organization or like himpunan, where poor management forced to you engage in activities that go against your ethical beliefs, how should you respond? Should you practice responsible, decent, or wise blowing? And what risks and moral responsibilities should you consider before taking action? So I think that's all, and then I will write my question in the comment section. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanif. Next, does anyone here want to ask? Oh yeah, to Areta, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask to Uda Zaki. Wait a second. Okay, so as you mentioned before, in a company, engineers and managers often have different perspectives. Like engineers focus on technical accuracy, safety, and quality, while the managers prioritize the cost, deadlines, and the company's overall success. Well, sometimes this conflict. An engineer might want to refine a design to improve safety, but the manager might want to push to move forward quickly to meet some deadlines and save money. And yeah, this is crucial. So because we have to when we want to make a decision, it also should be based on the engineering standard, but also for the business considerations. So, in your opinion, how can we how is the best solutions for this conflict, and And also in the chapter also mentioned like about the proper engineering decisions and also the proper management decisions or so-called PED and PMD. And how can we differentiate it and why is it important for engineers to understand this distinction? Maybe that's all from me.
All right, thank you, Arita. It would be great if you could type your question in the chat box. Thank you so much. And to Bang Atsil, time is yours for asking question for Mozaki.
Okay, thank you, moderator. First, I want to make sure that is it my voice clear enough?
Yes, it is. Not a big
Okay,
deal.
thank you. Okay, thank you, moderator, and thank you, Muzaki, for the very good explanation about chapter 4. So I want to ask about the whistleblowing because it's very uh, important, I think. So my question is, uh, if in an organization, it's in camp, university or in working place or in other place that we find uh, an ethical something that unethical. So we want to report or whistleblowing that into the supervisor or to the uh, manager or in campus to the lecturer, but it can risk our career or our student status. So how can we overcome this situation if we uh, find some ethical something unethical and we want to report it into like in campus we want to report it into lecturer, but we don't want to risk ourselves how to overcome it because as you explained in your example that if someone report the unethical something unethical, so the career will be risked. So that's for the first question. I think it's they you got the point, Zaki, and Lutfi, you can get the point.
Let me clarify. You were asking how can we overcome an ethical condition without ruins our reputation?
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
yes,
Yeah, thank you.
that's my point. And the
Yes.
second question, uh, also relevant with first question, uh, how we overcome that the challenge to in organization culture, like some organization or some workplace, they have very strong culture that uh, maybe we feel that that's not ethical culture. How to report it with wisely? I think that's all my question. So you got my point for
Yes.
the question.
So you were asking how to wisely report um,
Yeah.
when you find challenges in very strong unethical culture environment.
Yes, that's my
Okay,
point.
thank you. Thank you, Bang.
Yeah, thank you.
And I would like to ask to Muzaki. My first question is if you were in Roger Boyersley positions before the Challenger launch, and how would you handle managerial pressure while maintaining your professional integrity? And the second one is what evidence-based approach can be applied to reform student engineering organizations with a history of unethical or exclusionary practices. That's it. And and we have next question from Tiara. To Tiara, time is yours to asking.
Okay, thank you, moderator and also presenter. So, For my questions, first is quite similar for the other, but it's more likely asking regarding to talking about like the culture in the workplace, like how we like what do you think like gonna be the factors that contribute to a workplace culture itself that making in the first place that discourage the ethical decision making in the engineer itself, and how as you can see in your POV, like the engineers navigate this challenge based on like the culture that making in the organization. But in other hand, we also have like the um ethical our ethical make the ethical attitude that we have in the first place of for the decision making itself. And then for the second questions, like um as we know, there's like kind of organization like mostly in the specifically in like kind of long-term organization, um how we like what are the long-term organizational and legal consequences of like we know like the whistleblowing in engineer ethic, and how can company create a culture that minimize the need for it based on like the organization that we quite familiar with, example like our himpunan kind of stuff. Giving back to moderator.
Thank you, Tiara, but I'm terribly sorry I lost your point. Could you please simplify it? The first one.
Okay, so the first one is gonna be like the uh what f- um what factor contribute to a workplace culture that discourage ethical decision making, and how can engineer navigate this kind of challenge? I think that the compact one.
And how?
And how can engineers what's before navigate this challenge, like the culture challenge?
So you were asking what factor contribute to workplace culture that encourage decision making and how can engineer navigate these
Yeah,
challenges?
ethical decision making, and how can engineers navigate this kind of challenge as engineers? Yeah,
And the
yeah, yeah,
second
yeah.
one was what are the long-term and legal consequences in whistleblowing in such a toxic organization like HMDL? All
No,
right,
no,
and
no. I'm not saying like toxic organization kind of stuff. It's more likely like the long term organization that really have a strict culture.
oh
So
yeah,
and we have to inline that with the legal consequences that whistleblowing in that appear in whistleblowing in engineering ethics. So we're talking about companies, but maybe I mentioned that because we're quite familiar with that one. So it's gonna help the presenter to answer, but make it general. Like how can companies like I think my question more likely like and how can companies create a culture that minimize the need of it,
yeah,
not
yeah,
like mentioning
yeah.
toxic things. Okay.
Okay, I got your point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually,
Maybe
I agree with
I'm
you.
gonna uh um retext the questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tiara. Next we have Shiva. Okay, Shiva, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Uda. So, my question is, for example, if in an organization there are practice that do not comply with the work safety standards, or they intentionally ignore the safety procedure, so for like maybe they just want to uh, pursue or achieve the targets earlier, so they just ignore the safety procedure and they do it without limit, so it can make a danger situation, danger condition that can maybe harm the public safety. So how can an engineer still maintain their professional integrity in the organization that have the loose safety awareness? What can an engineer do in this situation? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shifa. So to make it sure, you were asking the first is how can engineers still maintain integrity that have the safety awareness, and what should engineers do then? Is it correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Da.
Thank you so much, Shifa. I'll send all of the question to Muzaki first. Wait a moment. I'll send all of the question on the chat box, Mus. I think it's time for you to answer all of the questions. To Muzaki, time is yours.
Thank you, Lutfi. So maybe I will first uh, answering the question of Hanif. So for Hanif question, so if we find ourselves in a student organization, maybe himpunan, whatever himpunan, where the pool management forces us to engage in activities that conflict with our ethical beliefs. So we should carefully consider the response, risks, and also moral responsibility. So first we can do the responsible design, like raising concerns in internal. And then we can fix the issues while minimizing the harm to the group. Examples, speaking directly to the leaders, and then proposing ethical alternatives or gathering support from other members to drive the change. So first, maybe we have to have the bravery to speak to the leader. And then for the uh, wait, I will see the Hanif's question. And then Hanif also asked about the whistleblowing. So for the whistleblowing, so this is the last option. This is a last resort if the internal efforts fail and the issue is serious. Example, it causes harm like maybe harm to you, corruption or discrimination. So we can do reporting the issue to the higher university authorities, maybe CADEP, and then or publicly exposing unethical behavior if it endangers the other students or the other students in the year before after in for yeah. And then you also ask about the risk. So the risk of this taking action, of course, first retaliation. You may face exclusion, criticism, or even backlash from the warga, from the peers, or also maybe from the leaders. And then the reputation impact, your credibility in the student community may be affected, especially if you go to the public. And then, of course, the pressure. I know the pressure is really hard and emotional and socially. Speaking up against the authority figures can be stressful and emotionally draining. And then the moral responsibilities to consider. First is the severity of the issue. If it is just poor leadership or it is not harmful to a lot of students. So you should also think about it. And then the impact of the speaking up, if you do speak up, so will it help to improve the organization or will it escalate the conflicts? And then the alternative to escalation, can the issue be resolved through the dialogue, negotiation, or like other efforts rather than external exposure? So my recommendation is try internal solution first, and also you should gather support from your closest friend, maybe from your class, and then document issues, and then use the formal channels and consider the whistleblowing as the last resort. I think that's all for my answer to Hanif's question. Giving back to the moderator to ask Hanif.
Very well, Mus. Is Muzaki answer satisfy you, Hanif, or do you have any comments?
Okay, thank you, Muzaki, for your thoughtful response. I totally appreciate your insight and perspective on this matter. I think that's enough. Thank you.
All right, thank you then, and it is clear. So we have to move to other questions.
Okay.
Which
Let-
question you would
okay.
answer most?
Can you go to Acil's question?
Lots of questions. All right, here it is, most.
So maybe first the af- uh, next I want to answer questions from Acil. So how we in organization or university or etc. we find ethical, we'd like to report it, but it can ruin our reputation. How can we overcome this unethical condition? So reporting the unethical behavior in maybe, for example, in university, of course, it must be challenging, especially when there's a risk of damaging your reputation. But maybe I can help to suggest to overcome this unethical condition. First is reporting. You should reporting, but you without the risk of harming your reputation. How to do it? First, you should gather the solid evidence. Before reporting, document specific incidents with dates, times, and other details. So this having this clear proof strengthens your case and reduce the chance of the backlash. And then you can also report it in online using like maybe anonymous account. And also if you know some universities have anonymous reporting mechanism. And then you also can consult a trusted authority if you worried. Maybe you can uh, report first to your trusted friend or trusted lecturer. Yeah, that's all for number one. And for number two, how we overcome the challenges if in the very strong culture, environment culture. So if in the organization have already strong culture, maybe you first we can do is we should assess the risk. So we should understand how deeply embedded the unethical behavior is and whether the speaking up will realistically create change or just put we at the risk. And then we should influence gradually from within. So if direct reporting is too risky, try to influence small ethical improvements in your role or department or in your closest environment, your friend. And then you should seek external support. If internal reporting isn't an option, you might consult legal advisors, ethic committees, or external organization. And then you should have a plan or strategy. If the unethical culture is too strong and reporting would lead to severe slash consider whether leaving the organization is the best long-term solution. Maybe that's all for my answer to Atsil. Maybe giving back to moderator.
Thank you, Mus. So to Bang Asil, do you have any comments on Muzaki questions and Muzaki answer? I mean,
I think it's very clear for me. It's very good as well. Thank you, Muzaki and
thank you.
Okay, maybe I can have the question of Areta. Oh yeah, Areta. Yeah, Areta already in the chat. Maybe I will. May I directly answer?
Yes, go on, please.
So the question is, in a company, engineers and managers often have different perspective. Engineers focus on technical, etc., while the managers prioritize the cost, deadlines, and etc. Sometimes these priorities conflict, but a manager might push to move forward quickly to meet the deadlines. So understanding when a decision should be based on engineering standard versus business consideration. So in my opinion, what would be the best ethical and practical solution to prevent similar cases in the future? How can we differentiate between PED and PMD, and why is it important? So from my opinion, from my perspective, to prevent conflicts between engineering ethics and business priorities, the company should adopt the structured decision-making frameworks to ensure both perspectives are balanced. So the key solutions, so we should make clear decision boundaries between PED versus PMD. So the proper engineering decisions, or AKA as known as PED, should be made based on technical expertise, safety, and ethical standards. For example, deciding maybe material quality, and then for proper management decisions, or as known as PMD, it should be based on cost, scheduling, and the company growth, as long as it doesn't compromise safety or ethics. For example, the deadlines of the project, budgeting, and also the marketing strategies. And then the second key solution is strong ethical guidelines and safety protocols. So we should establish the non-negotiable safety and quality standard that cannot be overruled by the pressure of the business. And then cross-functional collaboration between engineers and managers. So the company should encourage open discussion where engineers and managers can voice concern and reach balanced decision. And then also encouraging the ethical leadership and critical loyalty. So the engineers should practice critical loyalty, supporting business goals while refusing to compromise ethics. So the question is why understanding the PED and versus PMD is important. So first, protects public safety. So it can protect public safety and ensuring the technical standards are not compromised for cost-saving measures. And then it prevents legal and financial risk. Also, it enhances workplace ethics and improve long-term success. So I think that's for the my answer on Areta's question.
Thank you, Mus. So, Areta, do you have any to Muzaki answer?
Maybe giving back to moderator.
Yeah, thank you, Mus. So Areta, do you have any comments on answer?
Excuse me, Lutfi. I think your voice is really low.
Uh, uh, all right, thank you for the info. So Areta, do you have any comments on Zaki answers?
I think that's quite good enough, and I got the point. Thank you, Dazaki.
Well then, so which question would you answer?
Maybe to answer, yeah, maybe. So the question from Tiara is, what factors contribute to a workplace culture that discourage ethical decision making, and how can engineers navigate these challenges? So the factor that discourage the ethical decision making in the workplace. So first factor is the profit-driven pressure. When the cost cutting and deadlines take priority over the safety and ethics, engineers may be pressured to approve the flawed designs, and maybe he would ignore the risk. And the second factor is authoritarian leadership. If the managers discourage dissent and enforce follow orders culture, so the ethical concern may be dismissed. And then fear of retaliation. The employees may stay silent due to the fear of job loss, demotion, or exclusion. And then the third is groupthink and peer pressure. A work culture that values conformity over critical thinking can make employees hesitant to raise concerns. So your other question is how engineers can navigate these challenges. So first, we can use evidence-based reasoning. So we present the concerns using data, safety reports, and engineering codes of ethics like NSPE or IEEE, and then leverage internal reporting channels. So we utilize ethic officers, compliance teams, or ombudsman to raise issues within the company. And then we seek collective support, align with the colleges are and industry expert to reinforce the ethical concerns and increase the influence. And then the last is we can maintain professional integrity. If ethical violation persists despite internal efforts, engineers must consider responsible dissent or whistleblowing to protect the public safety. I think that's all for my question. Oh, have two questions. Yeah. Wait, I will answer the second question first. So the second question is, what are the long-term organizational and legal consequences of whistleblowing in engineering ethics, and how can the companies create culture that minimize the need for it? So the long-term organizational and legal consequence of whistleblowing. So it has negative consequences. First is reputational damage, like companies caught in ethical violation may lose public trust and making it harder to attract the customer or investors. And then financial losses and lawsuits. As you know, whistleblowing often leads to hefty fines, legal battles, and government investigation. And then internal disruption. And the last is loss of business opportunities. And how companies create a culture that minimize the need for it. So first is foster the ethical leadership. So the company should train managers to prioritize safety, integrity, and also transparency over short-term profits. And the company also should encourage open communication, should create a culture where employees feel safe reporting concerns internally without fear of retaliation or even job loss. And then establish the strong internal reporting system, like provide anonymous reporting, and then reward the ethical behavior, and also train regular ethics training. So I think that's all for uh, Tiara's question. Giving back to moderator.
Excellent, Mus. So, Tiara, do you have any comments on Zaki answering questions?
Yeah, so far clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tiara and Lutfi. So I will go on. answering question from Sipa. So question from Sipa, for example, if in an organization there are practices that do not comply with work safety standards or intentionally ignore safety procedures in order to pursue the production targets, and there is no limit to doing so, so it can endanger public safety. So how can an engineer still maintain their professional integrity in an organization that has a low safety awareness? What can engineer do in this situation? So what can engineer do in this situation? So first, the engineer can raise concerns internally. Pardon me, before. So in my place have heavy rain, maybe my voice is not clear enough, but I will try to answer. So first, we can raise concerns internally, like responsible listen, like we use data and evidence, and then we follow internal reporting procedures, like report concern to supervisors or safety officers and other committees within the company. And then we propose the alternative for the problem. We suggest safer engineering solution that can meet the production goals without compromising the safety. And the second, we can seek the collective support. We can engage other engineers and employees. And also we can consult professional organizations. As you know, there are engineering societies like IEEE and SPE, where it can provide guidance and support. And the third is escalate the issue if necessary. So document all the reports and the responses, and then report to regulatory authorities and whistleblowing if there is no other option. Yeah, that's all for my answer. Giving back to moderator.
Thank you for answering Shifa question. So to Shifa, is it satisfied or do you have any comments on this answer? So I assume it is clear. So we can move to the only one left question from myself to Muzaki. The
Okay,
time
let's
is
see.
yours.
I will answer your question. Last question. So your question is, first question is, if you were in Roger Boisjoli's position before the Challenger launch, how would you handle the managerial pressure while maintaining your professional integrity? So if I were in his position, so I would strengthen the case with the data and expert opinion. As you know, the Roger actually has already raised concern but not accept by some managers. So I would gather the detailed evidence of O-ring failures, previous test result, and the potential worst case scenarios. And also, I would collaborate with other engineers and experts to reinforce the safety concern as collective stance. And then I would escalate the issue internally, insist on a formal safety review, and also I would seek support from higher level NASA engineers or external safety regulators. And I would use ethical leverage. And also, as a last resort, I would whistleblowing. If the international efforts fail completely and the launch remains imminent, despite the safety risk, I would consider external reporting to government to oversight the agencies or the media to prevent the loss of life. And then the second is what the evidence-based approach can be applied to reform student engineering organization with a history of unethical exclusionary practice. So first is we can conduct an internal review and gather the feedback. So we can do surveys or town halls to understand members' concern about the exclusion, bias, and unethical decisions. And we assess past decision-making patterns and identify the key problem areas. And then we can establish the ethical policies and the codes of conduct. We introduce formal ethical guidelines aligned with engineering ethic codes like NSPE and IEEE. And then we define clear consequences for unethical behavior such as misuse of funds, discrimination, or the abuse of power. And then we ensure that transparent and fair leadership selection. We implement open election and rotational leadership roles to prevent power consolidation. And then we can encourage open communication and inclusion. And the last, we can do regular monitoring and external oversight. We partner with faculty advisors or professional engineering bodies to maintain ethical accountability, and we can conduct periodic ethic reviews to track progress and make necessary improvement. I think that's all my answer for your questions. Giving back to you.
Very clear and excellent, Mus. Thank you so much. And as we wrap up today's session, I'd like to extend my appreciation to Muzaki for his presentation and to all of you for your active participations. And I hope this discussion has provided valuable insight and it is essential for our future careers. And lastly, thank you again to Mr. Fajar for facilitating this learning opportunity. And also thank you to Bang Asil who this MS Team sessions. And I wishing everyone a great day ahead and see you in the next sessions. That's all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.